Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. Got another episode of the Guides Network. I got my main man, Johnny the Kid.
Johnny the Kid.
Jonathan Bowling. Just moved down here this year from Broken Bow, Oklahoma. Was a guide up there for several years. Is now a Lake Fork guide. And close your ears, young man. But if I say so myself, this kid has been crushing it so far in his first year. He had a great little pre-spawn period. Whacked them sight fishing, did a lot of good things during spawn, and now we're in your time of the year.
This is my time of the year. This is pretty much the time of year that I live for.
Right, we're in that post spawn. We're getting that offshore bite going. We're well into the month of May. We're a little bit over halfway through the month of May now, and those fish are really starting to get in some groups. Not just huge groups yet, but they're coming every day.
They're coming,
especially with the weather we're having right here like this. And so I know in your past history, you fished the lake off and on for 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah.
But the majority of your time that you've been down here has been in that May, June, July time frame, and been doing offshore fishing because that's your comfort zone.
Yeah, like the times I've come has been like the last week of May and stuff like that, and we've been coming like that around that same time for probably 5-6 years, and so the only time that I've ever got to fish it is like this when they're out offshore.
Right. Well, man, that's awesome. So I know this is your comfort zone, and I tell you what, one of my favorite things to do, one of my very favorite bait to throw early in the offshore season, in the month of May, my favorite offshore bait is a big jig. And so today I brought Jonathan in. Jonathan's going to help me. We're going to dive in, go in depth, give you every detail that we know about how to catch really big offshore fish on a big jig. All right, now, John, you know, the cool part about this, for me getting to sit here and do this instructional with you is we've kind of pre-gamed this a little bit. We discussed, you know, our philosophies.
Yeah.
We philosophized on the old big jig a little bit before we cranked up this camera today. And the deal is, the bottom line is we do it the exact same way.
The exact same way.
We use the exact same rod. We use the exact same bait. So we're going to kind of talk to you guys about this together. But, you know, the best jig, okay, for all your offshore purpose needs. Because out here on Lake Fork, we never know what kind of cover we're going to fish. We might be throwing it in a brush pile, we might be throwing it on a road bed, we might be throwing it on a bald point, we might be throwing it in timber. Yep. You never know what kind of cover you're going to run into on most of our East Texas lakes, honestly.
Yeah.
But especially Lake Fork. And so to me, that hybrid jig, that 3/4 ounce hybrid jig from 6 Sense Fishing does such a good job.
It does.
Of being very, very versatile. You got the big 3/4 ounce head, the big profile like you have on a football jig. In fact, you even have like a rounded kind of beveled bottom that as you drag it, if you're fishing a road bed or a bald point, as you drag it, it will rock back and forth.
Kind of rock and wobble.
Like a football jig does,
exactly.
Right? The difference is this has a very weedless triangular type shaped head that will come through a brush pile very effectively.
Yeah.
It's one of the more weedless jigs you'll ever fish. So it really does a good job of blending the qualities of a football jig, the qualities of a traditional flipping jig, and having weedless and hookup ratio. Like all the aspects are kind of assembled together in one awesome head design on a jig for you with this hybrid jig. So that's the reason I like that particular jig. Now, as far as color goes, man, I'm not real particular on color 90% of the time.
I'm not either.
But, you know, I'm going to tell you, it's green and brown this time of year.
Green and brown for the most part, yes.
Green and brown. You know, these
100%.
As these crawfish start to get out offshore and they get rid of their spawning shells, if you look at most of the crayfish that run around our freshwater lakes this time of year, they're green pumpkin and pumpkin seed is what the technical colors.
Yep.
But basically we're talking about green and brown or green and orange. And this color right here is crawfish roe. Now it doesn't have to be this exact color. It could be any variation of green and brown you want.
Yeah.
But this color right here I really like. It's got a little bit of brown, got a little bit of green, and even a little bit of light blue flake tinted in there just to give it a little sparkle.
Just a little bit of sparkle.
Just a little.
Just a little bit.
Just a little, hey, come holler at your boy type of factor. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
So we got a little bit of that going on. Now, as far as a trailer, I generally am a guy that I like to pretty well match my trailers to my jigs. It doesn't have to be exact. Anything in the green pumpkin variety kind of is good for me. This is green pumpkin burst. Again, a solid green pumpkin bait, but it's got a little sparkle. A little holler at your boy.
Exactly. And see, I used throwing that same bait yesterday, and the trailer I was using was that same crawl, but we was throwing in Nirvana.
Nirvana, which is,
and it was working very well.
Again, got a little blue flake to it, but it's green and black and blue is what it is. Green pumpkin and black and blue. And even a straight green pumpkin I'll throw on here a lot.
Oh yeah.
A lot.
Oh yeah, all the time.
But that stroker crawl is the jig trailer.
It's the deal.
Especially this time of year when you're doing this. Okay, we're going to talk about the retrieve here in a little while.
Yeah.
When you're doing this a lot, and you're dragging that bait, and that bait's just kind of sliding along the bottom, that stroker crawl with those thin appendages swimming behind it, and it is the trailer.
It is the exact trailer that you need to be throwing day in and day out. It's the deal.
Absolutely. So that's the jig and the trailer. Now, one thing that I do, John, I don't know about you because we didn't talk about this, but I'll take my weed guards, right, and I'm going to trim it up to where that weed guard, normally that weed guard is a little bit longer, but I'll trim it up to where that weed guard is dead even with the barb of that hook. Because here's the deal. Anything past that barb, I don't need to protect.
Yeah.
I don't need to protect it. And the other factor is most people think, well, if you trim your weed guard, your bait's going to hang up more. False.
That's false.
Actually, the opposite direction.
That's completely false.
The shorter your weed guard is, the stiffer it gets, and the better it protects your hook point.
Yep.
Now, I don't want to trim it down, obviously, past the hook point, but taking it back to right there, even with the barb, hopefully you guys can kind of see that a little bit, seems to be kind of the key deal. That's the key space.
That is the key deal.
Me getting it as stiff as I can get it, but still keeping it super weedless.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I will say I'm not doing it as much now as I was.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just haven't. I probably haven't cut my weed guard down in about a month or so. I really don't know why, but to me, it's not as big of a deal unless you're around, like.
We're fishing heavy cover.
Yes. If you're around that type of stuff, then I think that's something that
type of
you
stuff
need
we
to
fish
do.
a lot of time this year is not. It's more wide open stuff, and we're going to talk more about that here in a minute. We're going to get to the areas. We're going to get to the retrieve. Right now, we're going to finish talking about the gear. Now, so that's the jig, and that's the only thing I do on my big deep jigs. I don't trim up the trailers. I don't shorten those down. I don't trim the skirt. I actually want a big profile bait down in deep water. A lot of flowing skirt, a lot of moving water, a lot of activity. I want a big, visible, rambunctious.
Yes,
That's
100%.
way too big a word for my
That's way too big. I don't even know why you said that.
I can't spell it. I know that. But anyway, I want a big profile jig, so I don't trim anything down as far as that goes. But going on to the rod reel and line. On line, for me, I'm using 20-pound fluorocarbon line.
For the most part, that's with me as well.
Yeah. Now, you use 17 a little bit too, though.
I use 17 I only use 17 if the bite's kind of tough.
Right, okay.
I will go down to that, but most of the time I don't like to, because if you get hung up on this lake, you will get your heart broke.
Or if you get a big old head and you're around some trees, you won't be able to kind of take control of it. You gotta be able to, that 17-pound line can be a little sketchy in that situation. As far as a rod goes, I'm throwing a 7.7 heavy. I know you throw the exact same one. This is the Sensory series from 6 Sense Fishing, the lightest, most sensitive rod I've ever thrown. By the way, all this stuff, everything that we're talking about today, except for the line, is 6 Sense Fishing. The jig, the trailer, the rod is all 6 Sense Fishing. If you want to order anything from 6 Sense Fishing, it's linked below in the description. When you go over there, punch in that code, Your Lake Fork Guide, you'll get a 10% discount on all orders. So we got the big rod, 7.7 heavy. We got the big line. Now let's talk about the reel. I'm a Lewis guy. I like the Lewis Hyper Mag. You can throw a bunch of different Lewis models. It doesn't have to be the Hyper Mag. The main deal is having a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel or higher.
Yeah.
This one right here is a 7.5-to-1, but you can get it in any type of 7-to-1 or even an 8-to-1 type reel.
You can.
I'm good with all that. The main deal is, you're never going to move the bait with you're not going to sit there and reel it.
Yeah.
So you don't need to slow your reel down. And in that case, in that situation, a lot of times, we saw it once today where I monkeyed one up because I didn't turn the reel handle on. But if you set that hook and that fish starts coming straight to the surface, or God forbid, it comes straight at you, you need all that gear ratio to catch up to that fish and keep him pinned up.
Exactly, because you want to shove literally as much water in their mouth as you can.
Yeah, when they start running at you, you got to be able to catch them.
Exactly.
You got to be able to catch them. So high speed reel, big rod, big line. If you can get you one of these super lightweight, super sensitive ones, some of these jig bites aren't always just, they don't just kill it. They do. They hit it hard a lot.
Yeah.
But a lot of these jig bites offshore, they'll just be a mushy bite. And boy, having that extra sensitivity in your rod is really going to help you feel that.
I mean, yeah, for the past week, dude, that bite's been super soft. And I had a guy that was, he was with me the other day, and he was using a rod, and he probably missed 5 or 6 fish, and I said, dude, this is the rod that you need to throw. First cast with mine, he was like, dude, I can feel everything down there. Yeah. I was like, exactly. You want the right rod for that.
Yeah, any type of dragging bait where you're going to be feeling around, and especially a bait where they sometimes don't always just knock the fire out of it, man, that sensitivity is such a big deal.
It is.
All right, now let's talk about the areas, because the particular areas that we're fishing right now are fairly unique. And, the types of offshore structure we fish, honestly, you can fish anything at any time. You never know what fish are going to show up on them. But predominantly, the predominant pattern this time of year is these super long, super extended main lake points.
Like them, like super long, like running way out in the main lake, 600-700 yards or more.
Like,
we're sitting on one now. We're like a mile from the bank.
Half a mile.
Yeah.
Like we're out in the middle of the pond.
Yeah.
And this is the end of a point. I mean, we're sitting on the end of a point. The end of the point's like right there. But the most long extended main lake points, and the big key factor to me on these types of offshore structure is having super deep water off the end of it. So that flat spot on that point is going to be anywhere from 15 foot to 25 foot deep typically. It's going to, that flat spot needs to extend way, way, way out into the lake in that depth. And then at the end of it, I want it to fall off in at least 40, if not 50 feet.
Yeah, like I've got a point that I've been fishing a lot, and we're fishing right off the end of it. The top of it, 16, 17 foot, and it falls to like 35.
Yeah.
And that bait is the perfect bait for that.
You got to have that. And it's not that you're fishing that drop off per se most of the time, but the deal is that super deep access for these. I mean, these fish are tired, bro. They're
tired.
pro spawn.
Yeah.
They're super tired. They're super lazy. They want to consume their meals as efficiently as possible. And so having that super deep water close by, especially as the water temperatures change, and everything's getting hotter and colder, we got a lot of changing water temps this time of year.
Yep.
It's great for them to have that deeper water to just slide off into. And
Exactly.
And then pull up on that high spot when they want to feed without expending a lot of energy and traveling a distance to do it. That's
Exactly.
a big deal. And it just seems to be something that on Lake Fork in particular, and you're talking about May or even the first half of June, to some extent, these super long extended main lake points are just the deal. Like they're the deal.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much for the most part, pretty much everybody on the lake, that's the only thing that we've basically seen in pretty much
everybody
fishing. On today.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an unknown factor. It's become very known.
Well, that's like with us. I mean, you tried to hit 5 or 6 points, and it was boat.
That is a factor that you have to deal with when you're fishing offshore structure this time of year. Is you might have to drive by 3 or 4 or 5 spots before you can find one to graph.
Yep.
And then you graph that one, ain't no fish on it. Now you got to run by 3 or 4 more till you graph. I mean, that's just, here, the beauty of Lake Fork is it's an amazing fishery. It's got more big bass swimming in it per acre than anywhere on earth.
Oh, yeah.
But part of that is you're going to have to deal with some boats.
You're going to have to deal with a lot of boats.
And today, and especially on Lake Fork, it's not just the pressure, but the quality of pressure is so amazing that everybody's going to be fishing these good spots. There's a lot of people that are going to be fishing these really good spots. So that's it, guys. The super long main lake points, that's your big key deal. The next thing is lean on your electronics. Use your electronics to mark those fish, because this time of year, they can be real high on that point. They can be all the way down off the end of it. They can kind of be anywhere. So graph big, broad areas with your electronics. And when you find fish, start circling around them, zero in where those fish are, where that school is built, and then go ahead and mark your waypoints, and then fish those waypoints as you have them marked. Now, let's get up and get on the front deck and show them how we're working these baits, and how a couple different retrieves. Because there's a couple different ways to retrieve it. So let's show them that and get these guys clued into how they can go about getting these bites and getting these big old fish in the boat.
All right, let's go. All right, guys. So you want to make as long of a cast with this jig as you can. Like I'm talking rear back and throw it as far as you can. So what you're going to do is you're going to let it sink all the way down. And the main way to fish it is just to pull it like this. You just kind of pull it, you can kind of hop it a little bit, do like this and that. Now, the way that I probably fish it the most is some people call it a hop up, some people call it a stroke, and that's just to take that rod, but you don't want to stroke it with it down here. You want to have your rod about right up here, and you just want to hop that jig up, and then you just let it fall back down, and you just want to hop that jig up. Now, let's talk about the hook set. You don't want to do this wrong, because most of the time, these fish that's on this jig are always big. So what you want to do is, like if you get a thunk right there, is you want to just reel down. You want to make sure that he's on it. You want to point your rod right to the fish. You want to get your line tight, because you want your line tight from point A all the way back to point B. Hit him as hard as you can, and then get your rod low, and then you just want to crank. You don't want to, with this jig, you do not want to crank like this with your rod up. You just want to set the hook, get your rod low, and then just crank. Fill his mouth as full of water as you can, and get him in the boat like now. That's the main thing, because these fish that, basically like these fish that are on this jig, they're always super nice quality fish, and you want to get them in the boat like today.
All right, guys. So what John was talking about on the dragging and the stroke, and man, I definitely like to do those techniques for the retrieve. The long cast, again, very important. One thing that I will add to the dragging, one thing I do, especially if it's real windy outside, when it's dragging, first thing you do is let that bait get all the way to the bottom. It takes plenty of time to get down there. Watch your line run away from you. Wait till your line quits running away from you. Kind of follow it down, leaving a little slack in there. And as soon as the bait hits the bottom, just still falling, because it's super deep. Well, it's like 30 foot of water out here. Okay, it's on the bottom. So when I'm dragging, yes, you can drag it like this and hop it a little bit. One thing I like to do, especially if the wind's blowing at all, I want to keep that bow out of my line so I can have that sensitivity. If that wind blows a bow in your line, you're losing a lot of sensitivity. So I'll actually point my rod down low like this and drag it to the side like this. Like I can feel everything on the bottom right now when I drag it like this. So when I'm dragging that jig, I'll actually drag it a lot of times down low and to the side like that right there. And then if I get a bite, like John said, I'm gonna stop what I'm doing, point my rod at him, reel up all my slack, check him up, make sure he's there, and then lean into him. All right, now the other technique that I was gonna tell you guys about, this is a different technique, and we said that we don't really move the bait with our reel handle. There's one exception to that. There's something I call a low crawl with a jig. Now that's a little Marine Corps hoorah background for me calling it the low crawl. One thing I do when I get that jig out there and get all the way on the bottom is I'll simply point my rod straight down and I almost fish it like a real slow crankbait. It's like a swim jig on the bottom of the pond out here in 30, 25 foot of water. So I'll take it down there and just crawl it. Big 3/4 ounce jig, I'm bumping bottom, I can feel it. If you look at my rod tip, John, look at my rod tip. See my rod tip bouncing? See my rod tip bouncing? So I'm bumping the bottom as I'm just slowly reeling this jig. It's just reeling real slow. This is a different look, a different technique, especially on a highly pressured lake like Fort. Sometimes doing a little different retrieve gets you an extra bite, especially by them bigger fish. So try that low crawl. If you're out there fishing that jig, you're not getting any bites, man, try that low crawl. It might pick you up a bite or two that you wouldn't have got otherwise. Now, I'm gonna try one more cast, just because I can't resist. We kind of busted this school up a little bit earlier. Y'all may have saw the video Monday where we busted this school up. Right now, I'm gonna make one more cast out there. I'm gonna let that bait get all the way to the bottom. Strip a little line, let it get all the way to the bottom, and I'm gonna see if I can't catch one for y'all on cue. I doubt I can, because like I said, we've already busted this school up all to pieces, but we're gonna try it anyway. Stay tuned, folks. Here we go. Somebody tell them a joke. Here we go. Do a little low crawl. We're just gonna point it down and just slowly reel. Just slow as you can stand to reel, you're gonna reel. I can't emphasize how slow you have to reel this. You start reeling too fast, that jig's gonna get up off the bottom of that deep water. It's not gonna have the same effect. You want that jig going boom, 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 bouncing around, hitting things down there. That's important on this deal here. Got it. No, I'm just kidding. Ha, got y'all. No, okay, so we didn't catch one on cue. That's too bad. But that's 3 different retrieves. That's all of the in-depth gear information. And as you have seen or are about to see in this video, we catch some really big fish on this exact jig right here. Crawfish drone. Crawfish drone. 3/4 ounce hybrid jig from Sig Six Fishing. Go hit that link down there in the description. Punch in that code, your Lake Fort Guide. Get that discount. And go catch you some bigs like you've seen pop up in the video today. Because this bait right here in the month of May, folks, it's a hammer bait, and you will catch some really big fish. Well, hey guys, thanks for joining us today on an episode of Guys Network. How about John Bolin joining us for the first time? We'll be getting him on more often in the very near future, I hope. Johnny Kid.
What's up, boy?
Man, I appreciate you coming out here and do this with us. Thank you so much, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for spending the day on the water with me. Had an absolute blast today. Caught plenty of fish. About melted our brains.
Yeah, we're about to melt right now.
It's that time of year. Some of these days, especially when there's no wind like there is, as you guys can see, there's no wind today. It gets extremely hot out here, and that's what it's doing today. But man, we've had a fun time. Caught fish every kind of way you could imagine today.
Every kind of way.
Got a couple bites on that big jig, which is, I mean, never a disappointment. I love catching fish on that big jig out deep. So, hey, we certainly hope that these tips help some of y'all. By the way, if you'd like to book a trip with myself or John, well, you can find us both at yourlakefortguide.com, which is also linked in the description. You can hit us both up there. Reach out, send us an email, hit us up on the phone number on that website, text us, whatever you got to do. Come on, get out here with us, man. We'll get out on the Goat Lake, go see if we can't catch a couple of these big bass like we're fortunate enough to catch today.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Y'all go with us. Let's go.
Perfectly said. We appreciate you guys watching like always, and we'll see you next time right here. Where we going to see them, John?
On your Lake Fork Guide.
It's pretty good for your first time.